15 to 9. That is really bright behind me. It is 15 to 9. We're going to give it a minute and see if anybody jumps in here. Otherwise, I will just leave my thoughts on what I have uncovered in the last day. And y'all can come watch it whenever you want. Had some strange occurrences in the last 24 hours. Hi, Denise. I've had the strange last 24 hours. We're just going to say that. It's been weird. Is that too light? That is too bright behind me. You gotta love those little push extension cords. I keep everything hooked up on them. So I've had a rather strange last 24 hours. I am currently uploading. I don't know if it is uploaded as we speak right now or not. Well, look at my bangs. But I'm currently uploading the start to a story about what is going on with some Virginia schools. And it's a weird story. The reason I kind of gravitated toward it is because I can't understand what exactly is going on and why this Virginia community seems to be stuck in this vicious cycle with federal funding and reallocating buildings and reimagining buildings and money, and instead of getting like educational grants or federal grant, they get like Army Corps of Engineer grants. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on there. And the story was originally brought to me by Priscilla D. Hi, Dragonfly. I'm good. How are you doing? I'm trying to figure out which light. Oh, well, we definitely need a light. That's for sure. I'm going to go with that one. Ooh, okay, that's a bit bright. Woo! How do people stand these things? Okay, well, maybe that's a bit better. Okay. So there's a specific area in Virginia that is going through something again that's so weird, it's so strange. Like back in the late 60s, early 70s, they consolidated a bunch of schools due to a natural disaster and got a butt-ton of federal monies that were said to start an economic boost. But none of the stats in the community have changed. The school graduation rate, testing scores, nothing has changed. But now, since we've had another natural disaster, we're getting another federal boost. But the thing is they're only bringing in things like government, like federal programs, like a fisheries, which is great. Fisheries are great. Then wind and solar turbine mills are being brought in. But they say in all of this, they're going to spend like $200+ million to build a new school, to consolidate 3 schools that are going to make kids have to travel over an hour each way, some up to 85 minutes each way, to and from school, which is going to absolutely stop before and after school tutoring. It's going to stop tutoring programs. It's going to stop kids from being able to do after school programs because moms and dads will not be able to run and pick up these kids from these programs that are an hour plus away. So I am just really, I'm concerned as to why they're doing this and the motivation behind it. I will get this figured out in a minute. And who thought it was a good idea? Because these kids are actually going to lose opportunities for sports, drama, before and after school tutoring, before and after school programs, because they're going to be stuck on a bus for up to 85 minutes each way. Parents are not going to be able to pick up their kids for after school programs. The latchkey kids are going to be absolutely screwed if they miss the bus. And it's going to put a hardship on a lot of parents that necessarily do not need hardships. That doesn't sound good at all. It sounds like they're creating more problems than they're fixing. But you want to hear something funny about this area? Do you want to know something that this area has that I've never seen before? And this area is more rural than me. This area is twice as rural as me. Do you want to know what they have that I've never seen before? A double-decker Walmart. The Walmart has an elevator and has had news stories written about having a Walmart with an elevator. But their kids are in the 50th lowest percentile for schools, and even the law school that they started in the area can't have kids from the area go to it because their scores aren't high enough. And everyone that goes to law school, they only have a 56% bar passing rate at the law school. But we're going to put 200 plus million more federal dollars, consolidate 3 more schools, and open those buildings up to more federal programs, but we're not asking for factories or other employers to come into this area. As a matter of fact, in the newspaper articles, the media articles, they're actually trying to discriminate and tell people, no, we don't need that kind of employment here. We only need this kind. And I think what it boils down to, my original assumption here, which may, this is my hypothesis, it may be wrong. We don't know. We'll know after we look into it. It seems that it is coal country, where every family almost works for the coal fields, the coal mines. And so they need these people to run the coal mines, but they want to keep them to where that's the only employer in the area so that they're loyal to them, and so that they can have these coal miners at bottom dollar prices. And it's kind of like the old, the old coal community. You have the country store where they get script from the mine. The only things allowed in that community to this day have to be approved by the coal mine and the federal government. And it's almost just like having the company store, and they get script that they can only send there. Well, this is a community. They can only have certain businesses, and they can only have one employer, and they have to spend the money at the places the employer's approved to come into the area. So it's just kind of like the coal mining industry. Just instead of having little encampments, they just took over this whole area, and now they're running the education. And sadly, their education programs, even though they have some of the lowest teacher to student ratios, like 15 and 17 to 1, they have the worst scores. 66% of their students are on welfare. And the reason that the old schools saying the flood has now got them in harm's way, they're saying that they're going to close down the old schools because they're in harm's way and build new schools. Well, when you ask them what's the county going to do with those old schools, they don't have the money to maintain them, repair them, reimagine them. But they have the money to take on this huge new building, which will most likely be more expensive to maintain. I don't understand. So I'm looking into this. Priscilla is very upset about it because it's happened now a number of times to the community. And the schools just keep getting more and more displaced, and it seems like the government and federal control of the area is just more and more prominent. And so I just said, well, let's look into this because it's irritating you. It sounds funny to me. My mother was an educator for 21 years. I used to tutor for AmeriCorps. I understand the problem that rural people go through when it comes to the education process and needing more and more and more. And this just sounds funny, so we're going to start looking into it. So I'm currently uploading the first video now. It may be uploaded by now, and we're going to start tearing that apart. Yeah, it doesn't sound right. I mean, it just sounds really strange. It sounds really strange to be dumping federal monies there. And when you look at the profile of the community, the only employers really are federal employers with the coal industry, or they're the low living wages of like Walmart and a couple of grocery stores. They very much discourage mom and pop startup businesses, and basically the coal industry runs the place and the federal programs fund the place. And so it's really strange to see the people, the school board members that are fighting to keep the kids from being displaced and having to travel so far for school, they're getting really, 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 really attacked. And so I wanted just to follow this story and look into it because it just seems like power is coming from all the wrong places in that area, and I just want to follow it and say what the crap's going on and find an answer to it. And then also I've had a young lady contact me about a violent charge. A man in Michigan got a violent charge which seems completely out of context for his lifestyle, behavior, and everything. But then if you look into it and you look into the court system, the judge that is over this has got a number of conflicts of interest, to the point where one of his interns that got a DUI, the judge called when they had the young lady on the side of the road, said, no, don't charge her, I'm coming to pick her up. Hi, Chrissy. Yeah, this is Chrissy I'm talking about. She gave me this information. The judge went and picked this young lady, who was his intern at the time, up off the side of the road and basically did not allow anything to happen to her. It all went bye-bye. And so this judge is very questionable. We've got a history that is very, I mean, it's iffy at best. And now we've got a new case of a gentleman that is in a domestic, it's in a violent, we'll just say it's a physically violent case. And none of it seems like legit. It all seems kind of strange. And the one court presentment that the young man, or that the man had, the body language is very off. And he does appear aggressive, but he seems like frustrated, flustered, aggressive, as in he can't believe what's going on. And so if you look at all the different players in this, none of their behavior goes together. Like from a court standpoint, and I've been in tons of courts and tons of hours in courts, none of it seems to be consistent with a normal court setting. Something seems to be like an underlying, catch you out of the corner of the eye, and I know what you're saying, tell him to do, I've got it, and and then this guy just seems completely overwhelmed, upset, just dumbstruck. And so I'm looking into that. That is going to be a slower moving process, because I have to rewatch, and then I have to go on down the rabbit hole through the internet to get certain information, and then I end up having to follow and watch to check out other things and throw them to the side. So that's going to be more time consuming, but I'm looking at the Virginia issues as well. And then I wanted to get on here and just talk to you a little bit about some stuff I've noticed in the last 24 hours on YouTube. It seems like the last 24 hours on YouTube has been filled with a bunch of people that have drunk the haterade. It's just, I woke up this morning because I needed to go potty, and I woke up and I noticed that my phone had several notifications, and even while I was up, I heard it rumble a couple of times. And so I just kind of left it alone and set it farther away from the bed and went back to sleep. And when I started looking at it today, I was doing my editing and doing some other stuff, I started looking at it today, and I had a lot of comments to like old comments that I placed on YouTube. And I mean like 6-8 months ago to a year ago. And one of the comments that I had made was to an Australian or New Zealand couple, I think it was New Zealand, a family of 4 that had gone through and listened to every nation's anthem and done a feedback on it and the story behind it and the anthem. Well, they did the Star Spangled Banner, and they were touched by how, hi from England. Hey, I've actually got peeps in England. Gosh, now I can't. Where's he from? Is it Warren? Warren? Priscilla's here with her wrench. What was I talking about? Oh, but anyway, it's like 8 months to a year ago, I had made this response to this New Zealand family. I said, it's absolutely touching. Oh, it's okay. I chase squirrels all the time. It's okay. I'll circle back. But this family was absolutely touching how much they had gone in and reviewed and learned all of this, taught it to their kids, and their kids had, stated, oh, this is how we feel, this is what we learned, and they were so moved by the story of the Star Spangled Banner and how the man had written it while he was being held captive on the boat, watching the attack on Fort Henry, and how he didn't know if the flag was still standing, but the sign was to keep the flag standing. As long as the flag was standing, they were still fighting to be free. And I had noticed a lot of people had gone on and attacked their children for being ignorant because they said the Star Spangled Banner was racist. Is that a word that will get you dinged now? That the Star Spangled Banner was a big bully. And I responded and I said, I'm so proud to see parents educating their children about the world and all the different countries and all the different ways that we all live and all the different beginnings. And, you know, whatever you believe, please know that our Star Spangled Banner is not a big bully. That our Star Spangled Banner, in the context of the language and the time it was written in, does not mean what people are trying to say it means today. And it's actually a beautiful story about people that fought for freedom and went through a harrowing night and were uplifted to see that their flag had never touched the ground and that their freedom was still there. And I love your name. Sterling, is it Sterling Silva? Is that what I saw? I'm getting glasses. I made an appointment, but I also need a bigger phone, which is happening as well. But anyway, I said I commend you for educating your children on other places of the world and other ways that people live. It so needs to happen this day. Even people that live in their own countries are so their desire to understand other people is so microscopic that they don't even understand how their own community functions, let alone their country. And I said it's just devastating for me to see this occur, because I remember growing up and just having this sense of pride within myself when I heard the Star Spangled Banner, and I knew that our country, not perfect at all, had made it through so many things and had rebirthed itself in so many ways. And yeah, we've done some horrible things, but I mean, that's called civilization and the world being conquered and settled. There's no other way that, I mean, it's just going to happen. But the U.S. of A. has gone back and tried to rectify many wrongs, and I sit here saying that as a Scots-Irish Cherokee. So if I can see surely how they have changed and improved and still try to hold dear freedom for everyone and freedom to live your life the way you want to live it and freedom to be an individual in today's very, 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 very monochrome society. Everybody thinks that it's a unique society. No, everybody has become so unique that everybody is now just factory settings and just they're all the same. And I had just commended this family on such a great job of educating their children about other people. Cosy, what are you into? Young man, what have you got? You better be a piece of food. Okay, good boy. I have to check on my little puppy because there's no telling what he will get into. Good boy. Thank you. Okay. When he hears young man, he knows he's in trouble. Sterling says it was the last separation from the United Kingdom, I think, but from what I know, it was a positive step. Yeah, it was a very positive step. It's cold here too. I cracked a window because the sun heats up. When the sun sets here, it heats my house up. And I've cracked a window and I have just felt the breeze. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to close that in a minute. But the United States was an overall positive step in the world. It was a positive creation. It was a positive thing for humanity and for human beings to move forward and have a greater sense of autonomy. I hadn't even thought about that comment in months until today. And I had someone attack me and they're like, if you knew anything, you would know that that is the most bullying song ever written. And so I responded and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to have a dialogue with this person. So I responded and I said, are you sure that you're looking at the song in the context it was written? Because denotation and connotation change throughout history and throughout the influences within society and whoever has control over the language. And are you sure that you're looking at it as it was written in the context and within the geography that it was occurring? I said, because if you are, then there are a few things that I hope you would pick up on and realize that perhaps the bias you were reading it through is a personal bias that is being, overlaid and that shouldn't be there at all. And they came back with a really nasty comment. And basically I was stupid and I need to learn how to study and I need to learn how to look into history and understand that sometimes history is not written correctly. And so I thought, okay, I'll buy it. So I responded and I said, of course I know that history is not written correctly. I am a Scots-Irish Cherokee. I am only here because Ireland sent people that they did not want, they no longer wanted, that were either indentured or purely just enslaved to the crown. They sent them to the new land to see if it was indeed able to be tamed or if it was just a death wish. They sent them to do the hard labor and to build the communities, and so that basically no one of the crown would have to get their hands dirty. And I said, so I understand the history of this area. I said, but you have to also understand that at that time that the Star Spangled Banner was written, the prominence of slavery in America was still white. It was predominantly Irish, or even some of the native people that had been taken in. And probably Priscilla, it seems like everybody here in the Appalachian Mountains are, because we all seem to have stayed right where we are, so we probably are related. I said, but you do know that the prominent first surge of slaves to the new land were Irish, whether they were indentured or just purely enslaved. They were Irish. No. Irish slaves are just a myth. They're just a myth in history to take away the guilt so that we don't have to focus that the only slaves that have ever been in existence are not my color. She said, don't forget that some people now watch the Kardashians and they've taken us all back a few steps. I'm so fixing to tag you in that you're going to understand completely. And oh, we got Million Mile here. How you doing? And I said predominantly at that time, around the early 1800s, it was predominantly still the Irish that were doing the hard labor in the States. It wasn't until after that, and that they really moved southward and opened up the land and started having more commerce, that they started looking into bringing other forms of slaves into America. And I said, you do realize that the first slave owner in America was a black man, and he prospered and took advantage of buying his own kind and shipping them over. And then it was not like started by white settlers. It was predominantly started by the people over there that said, hey, we have an abundance of our own kind, we can make some money, let's just sell the people we don't like and let's send them over that way. Now, I don't care what color it would have been, but that's deplorable. No matter what color you are, where you come from, that's deplorable. We all understand that now. But back in the day, when human labor was the only labor, we did not have these shortcuts we have now. You know, human labor and farm animals, you know, that was how things got done. And when commerce started spreading to these rural areas, and the South was being created as the larger farming areas, and the North was more of the industrial areas, the South needed more laborers. So a lot of Irishmen started being sent farther south. So they hit around Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, and northern Georgia, and Alabama, and even in some parts of South Carolina. But then they started getting shipments, and then you start to see what is now the only reference to slavery, which was the black slaves. But that didn't really catch on until, you know, around the 1820s, 1830s is when it really boomed, and the shipments started coming more regularly, and the population started. And as popular as slavery was, it was predominantly in the South. It was predominantly for the larger farms, and it was not as rampant, and it was not just every person had 2 or 3 slaves. It was still for the prominent, wealthy, rich, and people that were on, had wealth and needed help with land and farming and agriculture. It wasn't like just every Tom, Dick, and Harry had Tom, Dick, and Harry. It just wasn't that way. And I could not reach this person, and they kept saying, your history is so whitewashed, you can't understand that what you've been told is a lie. And I said, I understand that history does not always reflect accurately, because in my area and in my background, some of my ancestral roots almost go side by side with the Melungeons. I said, and if you learn anything from me, please read about the Melungeons. And I said, they've almost been eradicated from history because it's a toxic thing to talk about, almost as bad as the Irish, because they don't want to acknowledge, these other little clusters of people that were treated poorly, because if we spread out the poor treatment, then we can't whine completely about this poor treatment. And so they've just eradicated this from history, and we only talk about this, so we can just have one completely damning topic instead of 3 or 4. And I said, so if you learn anything from me, please go read about the Melungeons of Appalachia. And there's still a few that are here, but we don't talk about it. We're told not to talk about it. The people that are here from the area, we talk about it. But if you go to an area college or school, no. They are taboo. You don't talk about it. You don't talk about the Irish slaves. You don't talk about the Melungeons. And you don't say anything about anyone that is my shade of potato farmer being indentured or enslaved. You're not allowed to. And I said, have you ever thought that maybe you have not been taught the correct history, that your history has been so biased that you're the one that it is lacking in that department? And I said, I'm willing to tell you everything that I've been taught from the Cherokee, the Lenape tribes, from all of that to the Melungeons, to following my dad's lineage back to the 1600s in Ireland, how we got shipped over because we had outlaws in the family that Ireland didn't want. And I'm open to talk about this, but you do understand that there are a lot of people that had a lot of things done in history that are no longer being talked about, and it's because they have shaped it to be just this one thing so that we can all focus our energy there. And I said, and shape the way that our nation grew. And I mean, I went through from the 1600s through for a whole lesson, and I was trying to give data and look this up here and look at that and test me out here. And you know what this person said? You don't know your history, and it's obvious, because if you knew your history, you know what Colin Kaepernick was, why Colin Kaepernick was exercising his rights to take a knee. I just went through 400 years of factual data that they could substantiate if they looked into it. None of that existed because Colin Kaepernick took a knee. I mean, does Colin Kaepernick completely eradicate my lineage and what my family went through? And I'm sitting here going, there's so much in U.S. history that is not being told. Why is it not being told? Why are we being funneled in this way? Why are we being told that we can't feel sorry for these people? We can't feel sorry for those people. We can't talk about this deceit that occurred in history, but we can focus on this, and we can milk this, until it's absolutely out of water. And then we can whine about this, and then we have to pay reparations to these people because they were treated wrong. But all these other people that were treated wrong, don't talk about it. And I'm just saying, hey, either we're all on an even playing field or we're not. Christy says, this is a firm believer in why you need to know your DNA and your family history and the era and history of your family. It's powerful to know your lineage. My uncle was a big kahuna in the Air Force, and he's a big kahuna in genealogy and culture and history. And so he had my mother's paternal side mapped out all the way back. So I knew that one. My mother's maternal side stopped about a few generations back when they started pulling Cherokee women out of the woods and naming them Mary A so they could wed, and that was just a dead end. It goes no farther. I don't know where I just know I come from the natives, but I can't trace any farther back than that. I know kind of which tribes, kind of made my family up, but that's about as close as I can get. But my dad's father's side, I can follow all the way back to the early 1600s in Ireland. And there is something that's nice to know exactly where you came from, and perhaps where you get some of your genetic predispositions and your traits. And it gave me a sense of who I am. And it also taught me a lot about the world that is not written in textbooks, that is not shared in classrooms and lectures, that is not just common knowledge. So the fact that I see a lot of people getting their ancestral and cultural heritage from MTV, from A&E, from Entertainment Tonight, terrifies me. It terrifies me. Million Mile Club says, oppression of the common man to elites is centuries old. Oh, yeah. Read your Bible and study world history, not just American history. Yeah, and the Bible actually has a lot better record of early man, to be quite honest, and about the tribes and the separation of tribes. Then I mean, it kind of is a better guideline and gives you more just, there it is, knowledge about the tribes of man and the separation and the languages and stuff. To me, it's a much clearer and better explanation, because it just seems like there's so much error in the history, especially over the last 100 years, that has been written. And I love old books, so I'll get books that are so old. I'll tell my husband, don't touch them, leave them in the plastic, don't touch them. Just look at them. They're meant to be pretty. Don't ever read them. I'm the only person that reads them because you have to be really ginger with them. And you'll read stuff. Like, I've got a book from the early settling of my area here in Tennessee that tracks the families. And the elite families that are here that have taken over everything due to finances, that kind of have the word of mouth of, we've settled this place. They didn't settle this place. You can go back and read this book, Who Settled This Place. And it was not those families. It was these poor old people that basically wagon broke down and here they were. And it was too rough of an area to go anywhere else, so they just made the best of it. And it grew because it was the only path in between two rugged outposts. It grew as the resting point. And so I learned a lot. And so I started collecting old books, predominantly about my area. And then I just started collecting old books in general. And so a lot of the older books have conflicting or contradicting information in them than the current books. But that's why I like the old books, because nobody really had a huge motive to change things then. They just wanted to keep a record. So I like the old books. They just kind of state it. They don't embellish it. And there you go. Maybe the next time I'm on, I need to show you my old book. I mean, it's a really thin book, but it's just like a 3-year account of the area, the families, the population, current happenings, important people that came through, important things that occurred. It's just kind of a timeline of events for that small little time frame. But I was just overwhelmed that somebody would literally, like, even if they were wrong, if they spent that much time and went through all that history to try to have a dialogue with me, I would have thanked them for their time and tenacity and passion for their topic. Even though I disagreed, I would really have respected the time they put into it. But all they could tell me was that I was wrong. And I said, really? Really? Like, I do like 400 years of a diagram of the nation being birthed and forth, and you tell me about Colin Kaepernick. Well, well, there were a few others, and I said, okay, well, what few others? They were all athletes after the civil rights movement, nothing before. And I was just like, come on, let's dig in our history. Y'all have some great people. Like, if I could sit down with a few of my top minds, I want to sit down with Carol Swain. She is Tennessee's shining gem for female knowledge, if you ask me. The woman, her brain just holds so much knowledge, and she's so well put together and knowledgeable, and she expresses herself so well, and I just am in awe of everything she knows every time she gives a speech or something. I mean, she just behooves me. And Larry Elder and Thomas Howell, I like to listen to them and banter back and forth and try to pick things apart and learn. I love the way they think. But I grew up, I'm not like, I don't know, maybe I'm just different than most people. I just take people at face value. I grew up as a little girl. I had the biggest crush on Tilk from Stargate, Christopher Judge. I'm sorry, that is one of the prettiest men that God ever made. I don't care who you are. That man is gorgeous, and he's very intelligent as well. And so I don't know. I just grew up, I guess, in a different bubble with a different mindset. But I don't like, just because somebody is like me, that they had a problem and they have a story and they have a plot and they're getting notification for it, and and I'm like, okay, that's good. I don't feel that I have to join them or represent with them. I don't feel like I have to adopt what they're going through. I feel like I have my story, and it doesn't have to go along with everybody else's. And I shouldn't. And another thing, from a psychological standpoint, one thing that I absolutely hate is watching people demand people have emotional dispensation for someone else's problems. Going through life thinking that you should be able to state that you have this problem and expect other people to grovel to you because you have that problem is such a lie. It's such a lie to go through life thinking that other people are going to care about your issues, because people don't, and they shouldn't. They have their own. My wheelbarrow that I push through life is full of rocks that are mine, that are my problems, that are problems I created or I adopted, and I put in my wheelbarrow. And I have emotional attachments to the rocks that I push around in my wheelbarrow. And so when I see somebody else's wheelbarrow with their rocks, I identify that those are your rocks. I don't have an emotional attachment to your rocks because I'm pushing these around. And so if I were to spill all mine out and stay there and go, look at my emotional rocks, they make me feel this way, stop, pause, and feel that way with me, by God. I wouldn't dare ever expect that. I would be like, I spilled my rocks. Just keep going. I'll clean them up. It's just these rocks, And so to think that certain people are taught they should go through life being able to pause society and refill this emotional space that they've been taught to have, how does that work out? That you just get older and does that emotional space grow, or more people supposed to cater to it? How does that change? I would think that as a child, if you were taught other people are supposed to fuel you in some way, shape, or form, that it would be completely detrimental to how you learn to fuel yourself. Because I know that I'm responsible for how I feel and how I handle things, and I have no one else that's going to step up and pinch hit, and no one else that should care. So how does it affect other people that are taught that? And I've had a few kids in counseling that have had issues that I feel that those issues were because they were taught that other people should care about the delineation of their life more than they should. And it was just, I couldn't get them to take ownership of their life because they felt that for them to take ownership, they see ownership from other people first. And I'm like, no, it's your doggy in the window. You buy it. So it was just, oh, it's not real, it's manufactured to cause division. I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely believe that our government and creates wedge issues within society so that we are distracted and fussing amongst ourselves, so that, like, it's like when you have a friendship of three, two bond really closely, and if two bond really closely, the one is kicked out. But if the one can get the other two to dislike each other, then they'll both run to the one, and the one is now the big kahuna. And I think our government does that a lot. And it's a shame that people can't identify that. So I was really upset that but what bothered me more was that here was this beautiful family and these young children in a very malleable age, a very in an age that was very, full of absorption of what they feel, see, hear. And I was frustrated that while I was trying to be positive and commend a positive thing, this other person wanted to just tear down, and like they attacked everyone that said anything positive. They just wanted to tear down the entire thing. And they didn't care that they were hurting a family or these kids that invested time to create this very nice video that was their opinion, their beliefs, their manufactured response to this song. And I was just, and I finally said, I'm going to have to block you because it's the only way I can stop this very negative tirade that I don't want this family to have to read. So I blocked them. And I very rarely block anyone. I just felt so bad for that family and those kids, because I know those kids had been trained to see the positive, and all they were seeing was the negative, and I felt so bad. So I blocked that person. I very rarely block anybody. I always say, can't see it from my house, not my problem. Normally when people try to badmouth me or say something nasty, I tell them it only hurts if they can spell it. Because most of the time they can't spell it. And lots of times, I'm one of those, and I'll say, not my cow, not my pie, and, I'm not going to step in that one, and I kind of go on. But I have just, it's just like now, it doesn't have to be an immediate thing that you do that gets immediate response. There are people that go back through social media, and they look for years. They filter through years of crap. Is Rikers Mimi here? Hi, Mimi. They go through years of crap to find one thing that they can create an issue with. And so I just want to, like, if we could have someone that was so focused on using that energy to create positivity, as opposed to go through and use that energy and create that negativity, imagine where our society would be if that person, instead of wanting to be a butthole, had said, I'm going to go through and I'm going to find the most positive comments and I'm going to commend them for being positive today. Imagine what they could have created that day instead of the negativity. And then I think, is this the evolution of mankind? Because we're supposed to be getting smarter. Like, our brains are supposed to be getting bigger. But if you look at our knowledge and our societal interactions and the way that we use the land around us, then we really look like the dumbest things on the block. And so I sit here, and all the time I look at my husband, I say, somewhere in a history book in 100 years, they're going to be saying, and these idiots then did this. Because we really do look like idiots. We just really look like idiots. And I was just frustrated. I was frustrated. So I've seen a lot of frustration last week. A lot of stuff that's like, really, we took time to create this. People would have to deal with it because why? Sweet versus minorities have been used to do the bidding of the ones in control. Yep. They're taught they are perpetually victims of the majority. Yeah. But when you get to a place where you can be anything and you still choose to dive into victim, Like, I understand Stockholm Syndrome, I understand a trauma bond, I get all that. Get all that. But to have the absolute freedom to believe anything legitimately this day and age, to believe anything, to just, poof, there it is and I believe it. And to still focus on creating negativity to believe in. And to still, the first thing that you want to create is a monster to carry all the responsibility for your wrongdoings in life. And because it's said that people will either choose to be victim or perpetrator. Well, nobody wants to be the perpetrator, so everybody chooses to be the victim. And when you choose to be the victim, you choose to also take a victimhood mentality. When you take victimhood mentality, you're not responsible for anything. It's just happening to you, and you're not responsible for anything. And so therefore, you justify every behavior because you're the victim, and victims just have to survive. But if some of us were really honest and we said, dang it, I'm the perpetrator, how would life change? How would the world change? Because I understand that some days I wake up and I'm definitely the perpetrator. I completely understand that. Rockers Mimi said, I told a stranger today that I loved her style and she asked me what I wanted. Nothing, just being kind. Yeah, I know. They get salty really quick these days. There comes a time to turn your victim to victorious. Exactly. It's like we're missing that. I don't know if maybe in our trial of life and that growth, maybe we've eradicated some kind of, I don't know, trial that you have to go past, like a line of demarcation that says, now you're a young child that can be a victim, but now you're an adult that has the power to change things. Like, there's no, all these other places and these other people and these other cultures have these progressional growth ceremonies. And in most Western cultures, we just have, you're a kid, you're taken care of, and then you're an adult that screams because you want to be taken care of, and then you're forced to take care of yourself, and then you blame the world for having to take care of yourself, and then by the time you get it right, you get sick with some horrible disease that you didn't deserve, that you can't take care of, and then you die. And it's like they never see a positive. Like, I've had a lot of negative in my life, but I had a life. And I was allowed to do a lot of positive things in between the negatives. And even the negatives, I always can find somebody that has it worse. And maybe it's just how you frame what you see around you. And there's so many, like, psychological theories about this super negative draw that is happening in Western civilizations. But nobody can quite change the momentum. But the funny thing is in a lot of places in the East where they have very little and they have harder things to deal with, and they still live very poor and very, very one-on-one with nature and still have very little, they have a much more positive impact on the world and themselves. And they don't have the ability to spread it because they don't have the money and the outreach and the technology. But we have all the money, the outreach, and the technology, but we don't have the positivity. So it's like, can you not have the wealth, the prominence, the technology, the capability to something taint your experience along the way? Because, like, the most rich people and powerful people in our nation, in our world, for the last 20 years have been trying to figure out how to reduce the population of the world. Like, if I was the most rich person in all the world, I would be looking at how I could help the people that were struggling, not necessarily reduce the populations. Because if you look at everything they've done to try to help, it has been in the avenue of, well, let's help mothers and children be healthier so that they won't have 10 kids and hoping that 2 survive. Okay, well, health is great, but how about we help the economy in the area where they can earn a living wage and can actually buy food so the kids don't have rickets and scurvy and, you know, I don't know, maybe it's just a, maybe there's just, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of disconnect between wealth and compassion, empathy. Maybe there's something there. I've often wondered if something like you get so wealthy at some point that you are so scared of everyone else because your wealth is such a weight that you lose your ability to see any other human from a sympathetic or empathetic vantage point, because everyone turns into a potential combatant, a potential thief, and you're just consumed with money, which has no human qualities, and so you're not concerned with human qualities. Kazi, where are you? Crackhead, come here. I call him Mama's little crackhead because he's such a puppy and he's everywhere. You good? Okay. Just making sure you're not eating my house. Oscar, you babysitting? Good boy. We'll both have my house seat here soon. I just want us to think, because, like, you know, I found out late last night that the nomadic track, the profile that I said could not have been a teenager that started it and now be a 23-year-old. It couldn't have been Brian Laundrie, and you know, it was somebody that was confident enough to be having a consistent banner, and somebody on the run would not be doing that. Found out today that it was actually someone else in the true crime community that had either created or taken over that profile to try to get Chris McDonough to follow the path and attack. Well, Chris McDonough followed the path and attacked and did exactly what that person said they would. They said, I can make him think that I am Brian Laundrie and make him go absolutely ape and come after me because that is his MO. Well, sure enough, that's what he did. But then you have to turn around, you have to look at the person and you go, why did you think to do that? I mean, I understand that you think what he did is kind of bad, negative, snarky, disrespectful, but what you did is kind of bad, negative, snarky, disrespectful. I mean, could you not have just like had a positive video about educating people to be emotionally aware and don't follow in the negativity and be careful what you are conned into doing, you know, have a check-in emotionally with yourself ever so often to make sure you're not following somebody else's desires and that you're being an adult, making sure that you're being kind to others. But it was someone else in the true crime community that had either taken over or created that false profile. I say taken over because it had been active for years, and had basically then laid a trail and had people give the idea to Chris McDonough that it was Brian Laundrie, and he had immediately launched and attacked. And that person in the true crime community completely played that man for. And honestly, I don't think Chris McDonough I don't think he's said anything that he knows was untrue, and then, or has said, you know, I shouldn't have done it. There's just kind of blipped off the radar. But my feedback on that is that doesn't give me any kind of comfort knowing that the true crime community will lie to make a point. Because when you're dealing with true crime and you're dealing with missing persons or missing children or people that have been taken out of this world in horribly disrespectful manners, and you're dealing with their stories, but you're doing stuff, you know, that is kind of incendiary, that kind of makes it all worse. It doesn't give me any more comfort to think that you're doing that. Even if you were trying to prove a point, that was a very negative way to prove that point. And it was a very negative way because it had thousands, tens of thousands of people caught up in the riffraff. So it's like, it's just tacky all the way around. It was just tacky all the way around. It was just tacky. So I don't understand that. But apparently it was someone in the true crime community that has the initials BK. And I think I know who that is, but I'm not going to say it because I'm not completely sure. But apparently they were manipulating this the entire time to show what they believed was Chris McDonough's very, inability to decipher anything. And that's sad. Sad that it happened, sad that it was able to happen, sad that somebody sat around and thought up that it could happen, sad that somebody would take advantage of a young woman getting murdered and the emotional entrapment that a lot of people were in and use it to prove a very malicious point. And it's just like, this is not necessary. Sweet Bear said, it seems Chris didn't really care as long as he had a show to make. And the super chat, yeah, I noticed that. I will agree with you there. I try not to say like negative things, but I will say that when he found something he could milk, it immediately became, he turned it into a Jersey cow, and he attached. And he was there until it was dry. And I thought that was distasteful. Because it was just like, and now I'm going to talk for 4 hours about a 2-second thought. And people be like, you've got to go watch his last 4 hours. He talks about everything that happened. He takes that one paragraph post apart for 4 hours. That was 3 sentences. 4 hours on 3 sentences? Oh my gosh. But I don't know. Yeah, and a lot of people are turning to social media for incomes. And they're wanting the super chats, and and I'm never going to monetize the channel. I'm going to tell you about like my husband that does furs, and we do little arts and crafts, but I'm never going to monetize this channel because I don't want you to think that I'm being swayed financially to say something. I don't want you to think that I'm profiteering from having an opinion. I just want you to know that I'm spending time with you and I'm telling you what the world is feeding me, what the world is sending my way, and how I'm dealing with it, and you know how I can tell you how I'm dealing with it. If it can help you, that's great, and if you can turn around and help me, that's great. And we're all just here to help each other. We're not here to financially benefit. I've had a couple people ask about like buying prints and canvases from some of the photography that I've shared, and that's great. If you want it, I'm going to try to find the best canvas maker, which I think is the one I use for the price point, and I'm going to try to find the best price and the best shipping so I can offer you the best price, because I'm not like trying to create an income. I think it's great that people see one of my photographs and want to put it on the wall. I think that's amazing. That's great. But I don't want you to pay 3 times what I have to pay to have the canvas made to have it on your wall. That's just wrong. And so when I see people doing like $100 super chats on these shows just to get somebody to read their input, and I'm like, wow. Like they're really invested in those channels. It's like, wow. You want my shirt? Where did I get this? Where did I get this? I have no idea where I got it. That should tell us all something. It's got a tag. It's Walmart. It was a Walmart special, I guess, probably a year or 2 ago. A lot of my shirts I get from Torrid, but I don't buy them full price. I wait till they go on sale, or I do the people on eBay that wholesale. On the laundry case, humans are creatures of habit, yes. A deep dive into the family's history, yes. We'll answer that, yes. Yes, trust they are being looked into deeply. Oh, yes. When I looked in and I found a number of businesses with a number of vacant buildings, with a number of very wealthy friends, and the daughter had been in a number of social ventures. Yeah, you start putting 2 and 2 together. And you start seeing a pattern, and you go, oh my goodness. It's almost like these people groom their children to have these horrible ends. I know that's sad to say it, but it's almost like people groom their children to have these horrible ends. And I groomed my children to be the next generation and to not crash the world in the ditch, and to have some momentum about themselves to where they want to create a good momentum and a good generation and a good culture. And both my kids, like my daughter came home from college this weekend and spent the weekend with me, and she was just like, the older I get, Mom, and the more I'm around people that are my age, the more I realize. She was like, I know you were hard on us growing up, but thank God. She said, because I'm in a group of people that have not got a lick sense. She said, I'm in vet school. She said, veterinary school. She said, my freshman year, this girl transferred at the very last moment she could transfer into the veterinary world. They were doing an animal husbandry class where they were going to go out to a cattle farm and talk about the breeding and how they select the bulls and the cows and the rotation of the heifers and the cows and the bulls. And she said, we're on a farm call. She said, we're all in boots and overalls. And she said, because you never know what you're going to do when it's a class at the farm. And she said this girl had switched her major the last day of the last week of freshman semester that she could. And my daughter said, I'm standing there in my bibs. She said, rocking back and forth on my boots. And she said, this girl walks up and she looks like she's going to a sorority party with a mini skirt and heels. And my daughter's just like, she did not know what to expect, apparently. And they're sitting there and she's trying to be, you know, like, oh, I'm gonna, this is my new major. I'm gonna do this. This is great. I'm gonna challenge myself. And so the teacher was like, well, listen, I'm gonna palpate some cows today, and we're gonna see if they're pregnant. If some of you would like to feel a cow that's within the first few weeks of pregnancy, let me know. I have gloves. And the girl was like, oh, I want a glove, I want a glove, I want a glove. And then she went and got the glove. She goes, this is a glove? And my daughter looked at her and said, yeah, it goes way up to your shoulder. And she goes, but a glove just goes on your hand. And my daughter said, it covers your hand, but it covers way up to your shoulder too. And she goes, well, why do I need a glove that goes way up to my shoulder if I'm just going to feel where the baby is? And Haley goes, because the baby's way up in there. And the girl goes, what? Haley goes, you have to go through the rectum. And the girl was like, you have to what? And she's like, so I need this glove. Why? She goes, so you don't get poop all over you, duh. And the girl was like, no, and just started turning around and walking back to her car going, no, I'm going straight to my advisor right now. I'm not doing this. And so she was back the next day, but she was white as a ghost. And my daughter was like, so are you going to stick with it or what? She goes, I did not know my hand was going to have to go up anything. Mom and Dad just thought this would get me out of my comfort zone. I told them I'm switching back. Yeah. And the funny thing was my daughter said she was going into accounting. And my daughter said, I thought for a minute to ask her if that was a TikTok degree or a real one. And I was like, child, that would have been mean. And she goes, well, honestly, Mom, I don't think she would have known. So our kids are seeing it in their generation. So it's and bless their hearts. They're, you know, I try to be nice to people, but there's at some point where you just have to go, did you fall and hit your head? Are you okay? Sweetie Bear said, I don't think there's anything wrong with making money on YouTube. It's a lot of putting your time and a lot of effort. Here's the kicker. It's wrong when people use dead children and imaginary killers to make super chats. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent separation there. I have channels that I like where they go and they like thrift for stuff they can resell, and I enjoy the time and effort and money they put into making those videos, and I don't mind doing a super chat every once in a while to support them. Or you see families sharing their struggle that they're going through, and hey, I'm like, heck, I'm going to support that because I just learned 5 ways to not end up there myself. That's fine. But that is what has bothered me the most in this last little bit. The true crime community is like, there was a lady trying to get me to buy a candle that had Summer Wells' face on it, and I said, who is selling these? Well, I am. Where does the money go? Well, to me. That's not your child. You can't use that child's likeness. You don't have permission. Now, if you're using her likeness to go to like a reward fund for rescue or something like that, that's a different thing. you know, if you've got it set up through, what is it, a 501c3, and it's going to, you know, that's a different thing. But if you're using that to make money for you, or you're creating t-shirts with her likeness to put in your pocket, to me that seems very, very, very greasy. Just, no. It's about like me, you know, putting pictures of other people's children on here and making money on every video hit. That's just like I shared a picture of one of my bonus kids who is now mid-20s, and I still asked her before I shared that photo. And she was like, well, it's your photo. You're the photographer. It's your property. I said, yeah, but it was your face, and I don't care if it was 7 years ago. I don't want to put it on there unless you... Oh, she's like, I'm fine. I don't look like that anymore. I'm fine. So for me to see these true crime area, you know, this community, and they're profiting. And so like the other day, I'm going to tell you, I got noticed, and if you'll see a comment on one of my videos, Priscilla said, I've got more bad news in the Summer Wells case. They're asking for their money back. Well, they did a big hoopla to get money for the reward, in hopes to get a big reward to make more people want to search for this young lady. And because they had not got it aligned right, where the money was going to the right place, being routed, and for, you know, making everybody comfortable with tax purposes and all stuff, there were a lot of people that were asking for refunds because they were unsure of actually where their money was going, or they had not questioned it before giving it and then had found something out and they wanted it back. That's why I tell you all, be so careful of what you buy into, because this little box is intoxicating. And a lot of people think that they can do anything through this little box. And you can't. You can't use other children's likenesses to make money. You can't put up pictures of other children without parental consent or guardian consent. And if those kids are in state's custody, like the boys, and you're trying to use them to make money off of shirts and candles and stuff, to me that just shows a very... I mean, I'm absolutely dumbstruck as to why somebody who is in an area where they're bleeding people of their compassion and money think that they can do something that is so tacky that people won't notice it. And I'm like, we're gonna notice it, because you're bleeding on you're bleeding them of their you know, their good vibes. And if they're people with good vibes, they're gonna notice when you put a bad vibe out there to get their money. Yeah, if you put somebody's child on the internet and they're a minor, you better have something stating you have parental consent or you have a guardian's consent. You have to cover your butt. There was a lot of people that asked me to do a response on the Hunter interview, and I said, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole. And they said, well, why not? You did one on Candace's interview with Dawn and Dawn's interview with Dawn. Why won't you do one on Hunter's interview with Chris? Why won't you do one on Hunter's interview with Chris? And I said, I don't even think Chris should have done the interview, because even though Hunter had his mother there, I don't think Hunter and his mother understood the gravity that interview could have had on a police investigation that was still active. I would not have in good faith asked them to do that, because it could put them in a bad position with an ongoing investigation. So people ask me, well, why won't you do a reaction to that interview? I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because he's a juvenile. I've made just a couple of little spurts where Candace has had to deal with him. And I've been like, I don't know, if I was Candace, I would never have put a video of me laying on a bed with minors on TikTok. That's just tacky. That there's no way to look good and get out of that one. That's just, you know, it just has a very bad feeling to it. And a lot of people were mad at me because I would not do a reaction on that entire interview. I was like, I'm not touching it, because I don't believe that young man should be put in that position in the first place, and I'm not going to do a video to get more people to talk about it, because then I feel like it's putting him in more of a bad situation. Oh yeah, people think that like if they're babysitting, or if like they have the kids in their custody, that they have the right to do anything, and I'm like, no. No. And it brings me back, I went through something that was very it was troubling, because when my ex-husband, when he had his affair and ran off and left me with two toddlers, and we were separated for a long time, and he was not trying to make the divorce easy. He was trying to force everything. He thought if he kept pushing me, I would give in to everything, and I did not. But in the time that this was occurring, the new girlfriend was taking pictures of my children and creating an online diary to leave for my children to find years later. And she was writing it to them and putting pictures up. And I found out about that. And I had to go to an attorney. And he was like, you need to remove that immediately. Number one, it's tacky. Number two, it's using this situation and the scenario the kids are going through. It's using the divorce, the emotions of the divorce against a parent. And number three, she's the custodial parent. He was actually having issues with his custody. He was actually begging the state to terminate his rights, and the state was fighting back. Eventually, the state did let him terminate his rights. He was a co-petitioner. And then after he was the co-petitioner in the adoption, she did it again. And because my kids were protected by an adoption contract, the state stepped up and said, you remove it or we will put you in jail, because they don't play with kids that are protected under adoption contracts. And I would have never thought how many emotions it would have to have a picture of your kid put somewhere without your approval. But when I saw how my children were being manipulated, it hurt. It hurt in ways that I could not even begin to express to you. And I began to immediately go through all the ways in which my children would be hurt once they saw it. And my big thing was protect those babies. Protect those babies. No matter how stupid their biological father and his new woman were, I had to protect those babies. And so I had to go through another legal issue to basically ring her bell to let her know, stop. It's obvious to me that you have no boundaries, that you'll go into a married union, you'll sleep with a married man, and then you'll visit with the kids when the parenting plan says you are not to be around them. You'll still sneak and do parenting visits when he has them. But to be bold enough as to leave an open website diary format for them, telling this complete tragic love fairy tale, it was horrible. And she was older than me, so I just, the stupidity there was just so elaborate. I was just like, what in the world? So, and I'm very protective because I worked with kids that were in state custody. I worked with kids that were wards of the state that lived in the state-run homes that lacked the support and the parental support and the oversight that a lot of kids in safe homes have. And so I'm just super picky about how we treat our kids, because how we show them, how we treat them, how we behave about their privacy is how they learn to treat their privacy. And so if we don't do a good job, they are not going to have good adulthoods and good boundaries. Sweetbird says it was very bad for Chris to air the interview with H, and so awful. The focus was mainly on his, yeah, no, pull your shirt down, woman. I mean, I'm a big gal. I'm a big gal. They make big clothes. So, they make big clothes. Priscilla said she'd drag him down the road and up another. I always tell people, you make me want to shake you till you rattle, shake you till you rattle, and then till you don't rattle. That frustrated me. Protect the babies. They're future generations. So we're all on the same page with the kids. Yeah, so, and I've been really touchy with, I spoke out when somebody came on about the Summer Wells case and said that they had, that they were like, oh, I've got a leak in the Department of Children's Services, and this is what she's saying. And even though the majority of it was information that had already been kind of broached in discussion on the internet, this woman was saying, this is what they're specifically receiving for health care. They're getting treated for this. And I was like, no. We don't talk about that. Because we can all speculate till the cows come home, but if you start saying, I have proof of actual health treatment, you're violating HIPAA. And if you've got a leak, you're violating a whole lot of stuff. And it ticked me off, because at that point I was like, I'm done. To me, and this was what people got so mad at me about, I said, if you are trying to find leaks to get information to break a story about these kids, then you are abusing them just in another way. Because you are. You're manipulating those children. You're using those children for some kind of gain. And people got so mad at me. But then, after I educated them about Tennessee state law, and after they thought about it for about 5 minutes, and after more people that had more channels that had been around longer than I had said, oh crap, that was wrong, then all of a sudden they were like, oh, that was wrong. But I had a lot of backlash. I had a lot of people say, you shut your mouth and sit down and behave. I'm sorry. I don't do any of those things very well. So, don't start asking now. But I will step up, and I will always say, do not put someone in harm's way, especially a child. And so I took a very protective role on that. And I still, like, I don't make a lot. They're like, well, you don't care about the case anymore because you're not talking about it. I do care about the case. But I'm not going to beat a dead horse. There is nothing new to talk about unless I rehash old emotions. And that's not beneficial to anyone. So I'm going to be quiet until I have new information to share. And then I will share new information. But I'm not going to sit here and like latch on to something like a dog tick. It's just not going to happen. That's it. You don't need to know health issues unless they want you to know. Unless you're family or you're providing care for those kids or the state needs you in on that, then you don't need to know. And they said, well, it was the foster parents released it, so shut up. I said, foster parents can't release that information either. I was like, legit, no one can release that information. And so I don't think some people understood like the line, the boundary they had crossed and how much of a legal issue it was. But I think now they do. But they kind of had a very, there's no nice way to say this, but you seen on TikTok the people that says there's something fixing to happen, it's called a whack. Yeah, they had one of those responses to that because they did it, and then when it circled back, they realized they shouldn't have done it. But in that 2-second gap, they were absolute turds to anyone that said, dude, don't do that. Take that down. You shouldn't do that. So sometimes learning, sometimes information is painful. And I think that was one time that information was painful for those creators. And they got very mad at me. And I was like, I have no issue with you all. If you rehashed it or replayed it and you didn't know any better, I'm mad at the people that leaked it and the first person that thought it needed to become everybody's information. Because those were the two people that did the big no-no. Everyone else can just pull it down and just stop. But boy, they were so mad at me. And they were like, well, you have a personal issue with me now. I got no personal issue with you. You have an issue with Tennessee state law. I've got no issue with you. So it was very odd to see like the people that are supposed to be in this kind and caring community, and then they just claws came out and they were just evil overnight. Million Mile says, look, folks, with these cases, remember, humans are creatures of habit. Close your mouth and open your eyes and ears. Exactly. Observation will reveal a lot. Eventually, they will mess up, always. Arrogance always means they will tell on themselves. The wheels of justice may seem slow. They do. And I tell everybody, the less the police say, the less the investigation releases, the more they're processing. And normally, the tighter the lips, the bigger the actual story is. And that's just from what I learned being in the middle of all of it. And if they're not saying something, it's normally because it's a big deal and they can't let out one little drip or the dam will bust. So they're holding on to their information very tightly because it's a doozy. So, absolutely. And with everybody that wants to rehash everything, like Don Wells was showing up everywhere on everybody's channel and all this stuff and doing all these interviews, and he really just needed to shut up because the more he talked, that was just more ammunition. That was just more ways to trip himself up. And he didn't understand that. But it gave the police lots of time to watch him and get a baseline and see how he reacts and see what he puts out there, and see how he structures his storylines and what changes and why it changes and how it changes, and the manipulation. And he's a very big manipulator. Like, it was a dog and pony show from the beginning. So like, if I was Don's lawyer, I'd be like, shut up, stop talking everywhere. It's doing bad things for you. But law enforcement probably loved it, because the more he talked, the more information he gave, and the more oopsies he showed, and the more behaviors and baseline behaviors he gave the police. And so they have more information on him than they need, I'm sure. Christy says, do you feel the case I sent you could be similar to what you're saying? Right now, all I can tell you from what I've watched in the clips of the courtroom, and the information about the judge and his inconsistencies with conflict of interest and some of the stuff he's done, is that there is a huge inconsistency in how that court is ran. And if there's an inconsistency in how the court is ran, and who follows the rules and who gets to make the rules, then there's going to be inconsistencies in how the law is applied. And so that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to get a baseline for how the law is applied from this judge, from this bench, because it does seem there's some bad behavior in his past. The one physical view of the defendant just shows me frustration. And because I don't have enough of a baseline for body language other than that, I just see frustration. I don't know what context it's in. So I'm just going to have to pay more attention. But I'm starting to dig. I'm starting to track backwards into some improprieties of the judge right now, which is very enlightening. So all I can tell you is that there seems to be a huge inconsistency with what is the actual law and how it should be applied, and what the law is in that courtroom and how it's applied under that judge. There's inconsistencies between those two. And you should go into any courtroom and the consistencies be kind of there. No matter the personality of the judge, the law should be handled and applied in the same manner nationwide. Well, statewide at least, because some states have different laws. But there's huge inconsistencies in behavior, and the biggest behavior that I found so far is between the judge and an intern, that he actually physically intervened in a DUI to save the intern face. So that's what I've been reading up on today, and that was like, really? That's tacky as crap. And so I would think that this judge would have a lot of recusals or request for recusals in this district, but I'm not finding very many, and so that tells me he has power and reach, and that's scary. That's all I can tell you right now, because that's all I've picked up. Thank you, Denise. So that's about like 24 hours. That's what I've looked into, because I've had a bunch of other stuff going on. But that's what I'm feeling right now. What kind of initial vibe do I get from the judge? That he's very comfortable on his bench, but potentially for the wrong reasons. I mean, I've been around judges that were comfortable on their bench, but they always knew that the rule book was right here behind him, and I don't think that enters his mind very often, at all. So but I am looking at that. Okay, so I think that's all I had. I think the only other thing I had to cover was the Southwest story. I had a friend that got ditched by Southwest Airlines through all that kerfuffle the other day. And we were talking because he was trying to go back from Michigan, lay over in Tennessee, and go to Texas, and it took him like 4 days. He was frustrated. He had to sleep at the airport. He was mad because it should have just been a quick layover, jump on another plane and go. And he had to take vacation time at work because of the days he missed, and he was mad. He was frustrated. And so he had been digging into stuff and looking, and he was like, It doesn't make any sense. And I said, it makes perfect sense. They mandate the jibby jabby, and boom, nobody's in the air. I said they either lost a lot of pilots and had to stop a lot of flights for until they could, hire some extra people or reconfigure some flights, or because of the jibby jabby, they had to down a lot of pilots. Anyone that had to just rush in and get the jibby jabby had to be downed for a week. And he said, had to be downed? Why? And I said, did you not see the Air Force, the release on the pilots? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, certain pilots of certain flights or certain types of jets in the Air Force were told for so many hours after they got their jibby jabbies that they couldn't be in the planes because of increased risk for heart attack or blood clots. And basically, they were an increased risk in flight for these things, and therefore they were grounded for so many hours or days or something like that. And he said, you're kidding me. And I said, no, it was like all over a lot of news media. And he's like, well, not any that I read. And I said, okay, well, read more. Get a VPN account. Go out of our county and read news from other nations about us. I said, it's very enlightening. I said, but that was one of the biggest struggles, that was one of the biggest telltale signs, was that the Air Force had to send out a regulation that anyone that had been jibby jabbed had to be downed, and basically because they were at risk. And he said, oh my gosh. And I said, yeah, oh my gosh. I said, and crickets on the media. So could that potentially have been what happened? Will we see it if, like, Southwest jumped right in to comply? Will we start to see it happen again when other smaller places start to comply? Or will they have seen what happened with Southwest and try to sporadically pace it out? I just thought that was the strangest thing, because normally something like that would not have affected my world, but I had a friend that I've had since freshman year in high school, and I normally see him once a year, and we didn't have a reunion this year, so I didn't get to see him. But he called me. He was like, I'm stuck in Nashville. He's like, if we're going to be stuck here much longer, he's like, can I just come pile up? And I was like, how long do you think it's going to be before you get a flight? And he was like, it could be a while. And I said, why don't you just change to another airline? And he said, because we booked all of this on miles we had. And he said, so I can't pay, $1,000 for a flight for me and her home. We just have to wait. And that's when we start talking. And that was kind of like ominous. And he said, I certainly had not heard about the Air Force having issues. I said, that was one of the stories that really hit me hard, as in I'm going to take a step back and say no as long as I can say no, because I have health issues and I don't need additional health issues. So I'm going to want to see every data point on this for the next 2 or 3 years, and my doctor's the same way. But he hadn't, and he is like a businessman, very smart, well-rounded, and his wife is as well, and they had not seen that. And I thought, wow, we're having the gaps of information that are occurring in our society right now are ginormous. Oh, did Brandon Tatum do a video about that? I'll have to go look now. Yep. I mean, it is. I mean, you're starting to see the habitual ways that they deflect, that they change the meaning of words, that they rotate. They kind of use your emotions and your habit against you, but it happens so often that it's habitual for them now. Just like they did with saying the FDA approval and playing the word game and the name game on the shots. And then if you really go to digging, it's not what they said at all, but because they shuffled the name in the shot, they can basically say, oh, yes, we did, you just took it the wrong way. And so a lot of people are going down, like a lot of places are taking a mandate as law, but a mandate is not law. And people are saying, but it's law, it has to be done now. It's not gone through Congress. It's not been made into a law. Nothing's been passed. This is just a mandate. But the vocabulary, the words have different meanings now. And who controls vocabulary? The people in power. And why do they change vocabulary first? Because if you change the meaning of words, you control the dialogue. And if you control the dialogue, nobody can have a debate. And if they can't have a debate, they can't prove you wrong. They can't show that you did something wrong. They can't show the inconsistencies because you control what the words now mean. And so you can't have a debate. You can't give information out anymore. And look at where we're at. All that has occurred. What Sanjay Gupta the other day, and somebody put something on the internet, and Facebook still flagged it. And it was just like, it's your own people, and you still flagged it. So it was funny. I just thought it was funny. And see, that's, Denise, I'm sorry to hear that. And yeah, I don't care. Like, I want everybody to be able to make their own educated and informed decision. Like, I don't want to see anybody hurt. But at the end of the day, I know that if I want to make my own decision, I have to give you the right to make your own decision. So I want everyone to make their own decision. I know that, like, if I start wanting to take away the rights of the people I disagree with power switches, then you'll take away my rights because you'll disagree with me. And I'm like, let's not play that game. Let's just all be good human beings and do the right thing no matter what. But my fear is that we're seeing so much of our freedoms, so many of our rights being taken away right now because it's almost an intoxicatingly fun thing for this administration to do. It's so easy. It's exceedingly easy. That disgusts me on so many levels, that people just follow what is being said without going, excuse me, that's not the way that our government functions. That's not the way. People just fall in line. And people go, oh, well, you're just fussing because it's not your party that's in control. No, because if my party was in control doing that, I would be going, excuse me, that's not the way that our government functions. You know, and I'm just like, and I've never, like, assigned myself to either party. And I'm probably closer to libertarian than anything, but then I don't like some libertarian toxic views. But I'm just confused at how our Constitution went to be just a piece of paper. Laws no longer have to go through Congress. What the president wants to do, he can say, and companies feel so forced that they have to do it, even though there's no law and there's been no structure to pass information and go to Congress. And what are they so scared of? OSHA's being the one put in the position to make all the calls, and that's not legal either. Because then OSHA is creating laws that aren't part of congressional record. It's like, stop. Think about this for a minute. I have no trust in my government. I've said for years that I've lost my words. Kazi, what are you eating? Come here. Stop it. I've told people for years that I'm in an abusive relationship with my government. And I fully mean that on every level. I trust no one. They're all crooked as dogs' hind legs. And then people go, well, you're a Trumper. I am not, because Trump is the one who started all this crap with the vaccines, and he became a vaccine salesman before he was the president there for a number of months, and that ticked me off. And while I feel that most of the time as an American you're just forced to pick the lesser of two evils, there are many times that I feel that there is no lesser of two evils. But all I can say is that the way that our language is being deconstructed, the reason our language is being deconstructed is so that everything else will follow. Because in all the falls of societies, from way back in the Romans' day to now, the fall was initiated with who had the power to control the language. And once language falters, societies go right behind them. Because if you do not have the capacity to share your thoughts and to share an understanding within your people, what do you have? You have nothing. You have nothing that can be maintained. It's sad. Oh, I question Trump and everybody on the jibby jabby. It's just, I'm sorry. We've got so many things that in decades and decades of research have never been resolved, yet this got resolved super quickly. Even though I know from my education that viruses mutate so quickly, there's no way to vaccinate against them. And that viruses mutate because they don't want to be found out. They don't want to be killed. So they mutate super quickly. So Mother Nature gave them that ability to be a chameleon to survive. We are taxi cabs for viruses. You cannot eradicate a virus. It just changes into something else. And it changes so quickly you can't keep up. So it's not if you're going to get it, it's when. Because it's going to get everyone eventually, because viruses change and morph, and they are just so efficient at what they do. Mother Nature knew what she was doing. And so we're all just waiting for our chance, when it hits our house, because it's not if, it's when. It will get everyone eventually. That's how it works. That's how we get in our system and go on with it. We either succumb to it or become stronger and go on. And we've turned people that have a virus into murderers with malicious intent over a snotty nose. And people are like, you killed my father. How? You could have been sick and you walked into a store. Well, you could have been sick and walked into his house. I've had my jibby jabbies. Well, okay, that doesn't mean hill beans right now, because everybody, even the people that got jibby jabby, can have it. I'm less likely to carry it. Nope. Actually, science is saying now that you actually have the viral load of multiple unjibby jabby people. And it's just like we put our trust in science when there is no foundation of knowledge to eradicate these things, because in history they've never been eradicated. And guess what happens when you poke a virus and you try to force it to succumb? They get bigger and badder. But in nature, every time a virus mutates, it always gets weaker. There's no such thing in nature as a virus mutating, becoming stronger. Why? They want to fly under the radar. They don't want their host to die. They don't want their taxi cab to drop them off at the nearest hospital. They want to stay with you and fly under the radar because they live off you. They're parasitic, basically. They live off you. And so that's why in nature, viruses mutate and they reduce strength so they can hide better. That's why most years you don't know if you've got the flu or a bad cold. But then when they start messing with those flu vaccines, there's some years it's worse and worse and worse because we're poking the bear. And because our flu vaccines are created off the Australia flu variant, which often is not what hits us when it hits here, but that's a whole nother ball of yarn. But I can't get people to understand that nobody goes out and picks this up on purpose. It is just a traveler on this universe like we are, and it's just small enough it can get places we can't see. And nobody goes out with malicious intent to get something and go and hawk and snot and spew at other people to make people sick. But they need that. They need that thought and that anger and that emotional response to control the masses. And to say, see what you're causing? Now you need to protect everybody and put their minds at ease. Well, who made their minds not at ease? Big brother. And so now what we're being forced into is a big karmic experiment. Because the virus is still doing what a virus does. And we're the ones that are going off script. It's just crazy. Kazi, you better not be into anything. Stop it. I hear you. I'm going to have to put him down for a nap. He's getting grumpy. When he gets into the zombie mode puppy, you never know what he's going to get into. And I know there's a lot of people that have way different views about what we're dealing with. And that's great. Like, if we can all talk about it, sometimes I learn something I didn't know. And that's great. Some people have completely different theories that I don't agree with. But I will bookmark that rabbit hole. Just by chance, I might want to go down it one day. All I can tell you is that what we're experiencing, we've never experienced before. And what we're seeing occur has never before occurred in Mother Nature. And therefore, we should all be skeptical, and we should all be asking lots of questions. And we should all heed any warning for somebody wanting to put something in our bodies over a virus that's going to mutate every 5 seconds. And they're saying, oh, if you take this now, you don't have to get tested. You don't have to. You can fly. You go anywhere. You can go to games. It's like you can't go to this concert unless you've had a vaccine. But I had my vaccine 2 months ago. Well, then you can go. But I've not had a negative test. Well, it's okay. You had the vaccine. But I can still pack this thing and be asymptomatic, therefore spread it more easily, more readily to other people, and not know it. Well, that's okay. But you're allowed here because you've had that. But I'm just as lethal. But you're part of the good group. You can go in there. And it's like the only difference in the two sects of people, the two groups, is that one has placed experimental drugs in their system to see if it has any advantageous properties. It doesn't change your human worth. It doesn't change your capacity to spread. It doesn't change your capacity to have it. And honestly, they're saying now it doesn't change your capacity of severity of symptoms. It seems like the only difference is that one person has experimental drugs in their system. And I'm just one of those people that I never thought I would see this type of response. It's like more people will have worse injuries trying to cross barbed wire fences during hunting season. But we're not outlawing barbed wire fence. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too logical of a creature. And I have a lot of people say, well, you make fun of this and it could possibly take you out. It potentially could. I have a lot of health issues. It would most promisingly be worse for me than the rest of my family because I have health issues. But upon my studying and me and my doctor's conversations about the other options, they could be just as, if not more so, scary. There is no good way out of this. And there is no way out of this but to make a personal decision that's right for you personally. And we can't then try to control everyone else's personal decision. It just doesn't work that way. So we're either going to allow people to make their personal decisions, or we are going to devolve into these little tribes of crazed infants that can't get along. It's just, I see adults acting like toddlers in Walmart throwing a fit for a toy, and it's just like, why? That's it. It says it reduces the effects, but how do we know? The studies in Israel and the UK and the other places that are by far the most jibby-jabby places on the planet, a lot of those new studies are saying, no, there's a study in the UK. This is the jibby-jabby, and the side effects of the jibby-jabby are creating so many health effects and so many other health deaths that potentially by the UK's first study, and go and Google this, you may need a VPN account, but in the UK they did the first study, and they're saying potentially it's kill 2 to save 1 with side effects of the jibby-jabby, because they're not seeing people dying from the koofy now. They're seeing people die from weird health issues that have not been this rampant and do not come up and show up in, it's just something's wrong. And the only thing that is consistent on all the things the people that have wrong is that they've all had the jibby-jabby. So it makes you think, it makes you wonder, and we may not ever know completely what's going on. It may be another generation or two before they get all the information put together. But I can tell you this, that the healthcare world got flipped upside down, and all of a sudden, nobody was sick. I had mastoiditis, which was almost meningitis, and could not get in the hospital. Like, we don't have a local hospital, so my doctor has to send me to the next ER over and beg them to put me in. They wouldn't put me in. They were saving their beds for the truly sick people. I was a hair's breadth away from meningitis. I was not sick. Hello, are you stupid? So then they send me to another one. Sorry, we're saving all our beds for the truly sick people. Excuse me, intracranial pressure, bleeding in the sinus, noses, and ears. I need to be hospitalized for IV antibiotics because the oral antibiotics and my pancreas don't jive. My bowels don't jive. They have killed more people trying to keep open beds for a dilemma that never occurred than anything else. And just like I said, now they're screaming that ICUs are full. Go to and Google Johns Hopkins hospitalizations weekly trends and find out for yourself. Every county and every state, you can look it up. See if they're telling you the truth. Go to the COVID-19 tracker on the CDC. See if they're telling you the truth. Because I found when I was being treated for mastoiditis this spring, they could have cared less if I fell over dead in the parking lot. But if I thought I had the koofy, then I would have been speed shot in there, but I would have been given drugs that I did not want in my body. Because I was told, if you say you've got the we can get you admitted and treat you overall. But there's a possibility they may want to put this in your system. And I looked that up and I said, that's not even FDA approved. Well, that's the only treatment that has been approved for the in hospitals. I said, I don't want that in my body either. And they said, well, then you're just going to have to go home with your oral antibiotics and hope that it takes care of the mastoiditis. And when I'm here to tell you guys, I got so sick. I was telling my son, do not let your father spend a lot of money on a funeral. Burn me in a cardboard box and throw me in the field. Don't worry about me, because if I'm not here, I guarantee you I ain't worried about it either. And I was preparing my children and my family because I was so sick. And I could not get taken seriously by the medical staff. And I couldn't get put in because they were saving all their beds. They never had a shortage of beds the entire time until a few weeks ago when 1/3 of the nurses walked out of the closest hospital to me because they didn't want the jibby-jabby. And there's just a lot of stuff that if you just look at it at face value for what it is, it doesn't make sense. And I'm like not trying to sway people because I know other people have had different experiences. But when I tell you I was at death's door this spring and nobody cared, I'm telling you, I was at death's door and nobody cared. And I could have lied and gotten treatment, but I would have had to have put in more experimental drugs in my system. No, don't think so. Like my neuromuscular stuff has spread to my organs and it affects my digestive tract and my kidneys and stuff. And the medicine that they would have pushed as treatment was also had a 60% issue with kidneys. And I was like, no, we're not playing that game. I'm not playing that game. So for anyone to ask you to lie to get medical treatment, I was like, no, I'm not going to. No. The Price is Right taught me a lot. If the cost is too high, you just walk away. Oh, Daniel. Is Daniel sick? Y'all, if Daniel... Tonight, everybody, when you lay your head on your pillow and you start to fall asleep, I don't care if your higher power is just your cat Bubba. I don't care. If you have a higher power or you have want to send out good healing vibes, then send out some good vibes for Daniel Armstrong. Bless his heart. It's horribly sick. Like we've had 3 prominent people in the community pass away in the last 3 weeks. And it's very sad to lose people. It's tremendously sad to lose people, but to be confused as to why we're losing people makes it that much more trauma filled. Because there is a question of what's going on and where is the blame and could this have been prevented and what is actually causing this, because my area, that is the lowest vaccinated area in my state, saw almost no deaths until the last wave of jibby-jabbies were forced upon employers and employees. And then we started seeing a lot of people crash and burn. And it just creates a question in my mind of what is going on. And I know, I'm not saying there's nothing out there. There's something out there that's very lethal and very dangerous, and we should all be very careful of. But when bear hunting, you still gotta listen for the wolves and the yotes and watch out for cliffs. And even though you're focused on a very big danger, there's still other dangers around you. So that's my concern: is are we looking at one danger when we have 5 or 6 others coming after us? Yeah, I have no trust in any government agency, body. No. And to be quite honest, after I worked for the state, I would have trusted the majority of my caseload before I would have trusted my management, because there's some kind of toxicity that comes from power. And then if you've been there and you've been with that power and you've been stagnant in that position for so long, you become so comfortable with power, and it just becomes such a norm that you don't think about what you're doing. Stay in that seat of power, and they don't question themselves, and they became very toxic people. And that's why I say, be nice to people, be kind to people, love each other, but have a healthy skepticism in the back of your head, and question. When people are coming at you and they want you to emotionally respond to something, red flag. Why do you want me to be emotional and flighty as logical and based? Because you're easier to control when you're up here. It's easier to control you. So you be careful in this world. And the world's a weird place anyway. It's a toxic place anyway. But now it's super toxic, because now we're all divided, and tribalism is just rampant. That's why I say, look for good humans, join good communities, avoid the tribes. Tribes are toxic. Tribes are horrible. We have a lot to be curious about in our time, and we have a lot to be concerned about. Dusty, you're on to something there. It's nice when y'all put it in the comments, because I can't be held responsible for what y'all type in the comments. So, like, when y'all really hit a good trail, I like it. Question everything. Sometimes life is crazier than fiction. Sometimes it is. So let's end on a positive note. It's starting to be winter time, and I'm going to be in craft mode again, which is going to drive my husband absolutely insane. So I am thinking of taking, and this may disgust some of you, I don't know, but I'm thinking of taking bobcat teeth and coyote teeth, and taking my Dremel and putting a little hole through them, and turning and braiding them into like little, the first thing you learn to do as a Cherokee is either bead or braid. Because they put you with the old women in the powwow tent while the men are making a drum. And you either braid or bead until you blue in the face. I'm just going to tell you. And so you learn how to make all the bracelets and stuff. And so I've been thinking about braiding the bobcat teeth and the coyote teeth into the bracelets. Mostly because they say when you wear something of the creature, you are asking to inherit some of the creature's wisdom. Well, bobcats are stealthy, and coyotes understand that there's power in packs. And so I'm going to focus on positive energy when I make these things, because that's the intent you want to put out into the world. That's how I was taught by my elders. And I'm going to make some of these. And I'm going to be selling some. I'm going to be making some talking sticks. If you've never seen a talking stick, they can be decorated a bunch of different ways. But go read about them. They're really neat. I do dream catchers as well, but I do just little like quirky things, because to me it's disrespectful to waste any part of the animal. So I try to do anything that I can. Yeah, no, I've actually seen the Mindful Discerning. Yeah, great subject. Yeah, go and watch that. It's just hard to find good people. I just like to find good people. So I make lots of weird things. Like this is turkey feathers and beer. I need beer apparently. This is turkey feathers and beaver jaws with a little dream catcher in the middle, and then I painted a sunset river scene on it. And this is just, I make weird things. I make weird things. My husband's like, where did you come up with that? I don't know. It's just what I had, and I threw it together, and that's what I made. I'm kind of in love with this guy, and I've kind of hoarded him for a while, but I think I'm going to part with him. This is my coyote head. And I felted at the back of his ears and the backside with purple felt, because I'm a purple freak, because I love purple. And he is just a coyote crown. We call it a coyote crown because it's just like the shoulders up. I'm thinking about weaving him into a frame. If I do, then he'll be much more expensive. But we do a lot of coyote crowns. And I always felt the back of them because people like to lay them over stuff to display. And I always like to do a little punch of color. And I always do the insides of their ears and everything because, you know, you got little kids in the house and they're going to stick their fingers in, and, you know, you just wanted to, you know, make sure it's going to last. We only have Cody's and one bobcat left. All the foxes are sold. I think I might have one possum left. We're down to the nitty gritty because everything's sold this year. So the little stuff I'm going to be using and making little stuff to sell. Now my husband has got the Etsy store, which is, I believe it's what, Hillbilly Heart Decor. I'll have to get back with you on that. I've slept since then. And it's empty right now, but we're fixing to load it again. But if I ever show something on here or say that I'm making something that you're interested in and you don't want to incur the Etsy fee, or you want to do a private sale, then you can yell at me or go through Facebook Hillbilly Furs, which is my husband, and you can always do a private sale. Thank you, Priscilla. And so you can always meet up with him to do a private sale. Trapping season is fixing to start again, so he will be going out and trapping and replenishing, and we'll be doing all this again. So we're trying to get rid of all the tanned items first. I think we still have 2 or 3 beaver hoops, and then the rest are coyote pelts. We might have 1 big deer hide. I need to take a census. We've even got raccoon tails, coyote tails. I've got deer antler keychains, beaver teeth keychains, and like the keychains start at $3, so it's really affordable, crafty stuff. And you know, everybody gets really irritated with some of our work, but he was raised just like me, backwoods. I'm Cherokee. I was raised that you use the animal, you respect the animal by using all the animal. So we use all of the animal, and I normally adopt 4 or 5 hides a year because I get attached to them and they just become mine. But I'm trying, because my house is so full, I'm trying to move everything out this year. So dream catchers are great, and always when you teach them to weave their dream catcher, make sure you're teaching them to weave the motive into the dream catcher, what you want the dream catcher to do, so that it will, you know, they kind of put power into it. I do make the huge dream catchers. I will actually bend willow limbs. I'll soak them and bend them and make the huge dream catchers. And then I've got I made a snowshoe dream catcher, which is in the shape of a snowshoe it's got a coyote skull and jaw on it, and it's got feathers hanging from it, and I still have that. But like some of these, like these are normally around $25. I've got a grapevine wreath with burgundy flowers and a bobcat crown. It's got the bobcat head and crown on it. I've got it, and it will be $25 plus shipping. It's got the yellow trapper tag in it, which has to stay in it until the new owner gets it. Then the new owner can cut it out, but until we sell it, it has to stay. A lot of people don't know that. That's it. Weave it and speak your intentions from your heart, and that's what it will do. I was raised, like, I showed cattle and wore cowboy boots and a cowboy hat and was freckled, but my mother was raised, and we were always at powwows or gatherings, and so I always sat with the women and did the crafts, the shoes, something, while the men made the drum, because we always made a drum in every gathering. And so a lot of the stuff you just pick up on. We also went on gathering excursions where we went and picked stuff to eat in the woods. So I was just raised weird, I guess. I don't know. I guess I'm a weird conglomeration. But we will have all of this stuff to sell, and if I ever share pictures or photography on any of my slides that you would like to buy a print or a canvas of, let me know, and I'll get it to you with the best price possible. You know, I want to make $1 or $2, but I'm not trying to like bleed out. But the fur items, he's done several vendor sites this year in crafting fairs, and at this point we're just trying to move out what's left, because there's just so few of the smaller items, so they're going to be easy to ship. And over the next week, I'm going to be putting more pictures on the Hillbilly Furs Facebook page. So if you want to see what's up for sale, there'll be pictures will be showing up there over the next week. And a lot of people ask me about the stuff when I have videos and y'all see me either talking about what Dave's doing or my house that's got animals everywhere, they always ask about it. But these are my favorite. I like to lay these over the backs of chairs and freak people out. Between these and my beaver pelts, they show up in my house in lots of places. I usually try to keep bobcats, but then people come in and buy the bobcats and they go. So I can't not been able to keep a bobcat in years. I sold one of my oldest bobcat mounts a month ago, and my husband said, I never thought you'd get rid of that thing, but I was literally just, my house is too full. So y'all are going to y'all going to take advantage of that, hopefully, and buy some stuff. But Hillbilly Furs, and then when we load the Etsy store, he will put the link on the Hillbilly Furs page. And then when we load the Etsy store, I will also do a live and let you all know here as well. But that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about. And then over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be following the Virginia story and following that judge and that guy in Michigan. So keep up with me, y'all. We're going to be digging and seeing what's going on and asking all the right questions, because it's time for small communities to take their power back. There you go. See, and people think it's so funny because I am, if you saw my mother, which I think I've shared a picture too, if you saw my mother, you can see the Cherokee in her, and my granny and the high cheekbones, you can see it. And I take after my father. Like you can still see it in my cheekbones, my eyes, I think. But I take after my father, who is literally strawberry blonde, Scots Irish. I am my father made over. It's not fair. And my brother looks like my mother with the tawny skin and the raven black hair. And then my dad's side is just strawberry blondes from our, it's just like a split genetic. It just split. And so my brother is tan all the time and looks rather stoic, and I'm portly, look like I'm one potato famine away from death. So it's just, it is what it is. I will when I get the Etsy store located or loaded, and I do the video about it. I will definitely put the link in the description, and I will tell you all, and I'll kind of give you a preview of what's for sale through photos so that you can look there. And then if you see something that really rings your bell, you can go to the store, because I hate going to Etsy because I get sucked into it for hours and I get lost, and then people deliver things and I'm happy, but I literally get sucked in for hours. So I get it. And that's why when I do sell stuff, I like to tell you, but I don't like to focus on it, because I think if you really want it, you'll go find it. Take pride in being a mutt. I do. It means that I fit in at least 2 places. Jamie, it was nice to see you this evening. I appreciate your time spending with us. Honey, I've got wings right here. If I don't color my hair, I've got wings of gray right here, just like my granny and my mother do. And I color. And this is the closest to my natural hair color that my hair has been in probably a decade, because I am so pale, pathetically pale, that I go with darker shades. So this is as close. My son has got totally red hair, and I had a very auburn cast. I was the same color as my limousine heifer that I was showing. We matched. So this is as close to my natural hair color as I've been in probably a decade. My husband was like, keep it red, I like it red. But then as soon as I start to gray out, I'll be wanting to go black again sometime around Christmas. It just happens. It's what I do. I'm weird. Okay, Kazi is now going to turn into destructo mode if I do not get him and make him take a nap. My husband will be home from work in about an hour. I'm going to call it a day. Y'all have spent the bulk of the evening with me. I appreciate it so much. Certainly you did not have to. I really appreciate your time, because time is valuable. It's precious. You can't get it back. So thank you so much for spending time with me. And you probably will not have a live from me for the next few days, but I am going to be making follow-up videos to the Virginia story and probably to the Michigan court story that I've started. So as always, I will try to do it now that I've figured out how to do community posts. I will try to do community posts should anything change. And otherwise, you know what to get me through my email, watersworkload@gmail.com. If you need me, you can get me through there. I try to check it at least twice a day. And maybe a couple of slow story days for the next week or two. But I'm going to be in crafting overhaul, so it will speed back up as soon as I get busy. I'm going to go and get my poor little dog before he gets distracted Mongo and starts eating things to stay awake. I appreciate your time. Thank you for spending the evening with me. I love you all. You make my life so much more enriched. I appreciate every comment, email, check-in. I love yous all. Priscilla and Denise, y'all have become my right-hand women. Y'all are so helpful. Priscilla keeps me sane on a daily basis. Thank you all so much for being part of my life. And if you consider me part of yours, I'm greatly honored. And I hope that we keep building our little family and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. We keep finding great people, because this is how we're going to survive what's headed down the pipeline in our society. Good people. We need them. Find them and send them here. And I'm going to go to bed now. So officially, Mama Liz out. Night, y'all.